Welcome, Spiritual Mag. My name's Sam Bell, and today we are going to do a special. So, the introduction is trying to place where I'm coming from, Sam Bell. So, today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. It's 5:37 a.m. and I'm in Miraflores, Lima, Peru. My name's Samuel Joseph Bell. I'll be 76 next month. And the topic that I'm going to be sharing is forward thinking. So, for many individuals, this will seem not in the third dimension, but my preface, what I want to share is my firsthand direct experiences, some very, very brief ones, with entities other than human beings. They're either off-planet or deities or avatars or other. So, 1995. I'm a speech and language pathologist licensed in California, and I'm working in the United States and in New Zealand, going back and forth. So I go get a reading from an individual, Sylvia Celeste Brown, in near San Jose, California. And she began sharing with me information about spirituality and higher consciousness, and offered to provide education on hypnosis, cell memory therapist, and an assortment of other spiritual information for free for me. So I stepped out of the hospital setting and put one foot into the psycho-spiritual setting. So, open my eyes. So, now the things that happened that are kind of unbelievable, but actually happened that I need to share are: one, I'm at the Sunday service. I'm sitting at the back. On my left are all the ministers and bishops, Sylvia's husband, Larry. And the organ player is up at the front. No, maybe 300 or 400 people total. And I'm at the back. I'd set up chairs, so I'm at the very back in the folding chair next to the back. And in the middle of the service, I look to my left at about, maybe 7 or 8 chairs, folding chairs. And the row directly in front of me, a woman materializes from the waist up. Okay? So I see this woman materialize from the waist up, and into my mind pounds these concepts. She's doing this to not frighten me. Like, where does that come from? Right? Okay, so remember Granny in the Beverly Hillbillies? She looks exactly like Granny. Maybe 90 pounds, maybe. Okay? And she floats over towards, not directly in front of me, but just to my left. And as she's coming over, I'm looking at her. And she's dressed in a form-fitting pink natural silk gown. Form-fitting pink natural silk gown. So it's not shiny silk. And it's covered from the top to the bottom, to all the way down the shoulders, the sleeves, with identical natural pink pearls. Not cultured pearls, but natural pearls. And her, she's maybe 4.5 feet tall. And her collar on her gown, you might remember these pictures of these, queens and stuff, like in the oldie times, and they'd have this collar. It looks like, when an accordion is, which you squeeze, it accordion. They have this like accordion, like big collars that stick out and are folded, and they're white, like they stick out past their shoulders. Well, this lady has this collar like that, but ultra delicate, that it disappears at the outer perimeter. Okay. And it's white. So this is so heavy. So she comes over and she stops right directly in front of me, but just to the left, the chair to the left. So I'm looking down at her at about, at the most, 24 inches, but closer than that, because I'm just staring at this thing like, what in the hell is this? What's with this gown? And I know a little bit about pearls, and you're not going to find pink natural pearls. It's very difficult. And then to find pink ones that are the same size, it's impossible. And these are all perfect, right? So I'm looking at her going, what is this? What is this? What is this? Right? I'm so blown. And then I'm thinking, how are these pearls attached to the dress? Okay. Like, how are these things attached? So then I'm thinking, how did she get into this dress? There's no zipper, no buttons, whatever. So then she goes back off and does the reverse, just disappears. All right, so I'm like completely blown, just like, oh my, what, wow, wow. So, no, the entire, all the ministers and bishops are on the left, and they're all facing directly towards me, because they're facing, at a right angle from the stage up front. So, anyway, okay. So I'm what's called a minister in training at MIT. So I'm down sitting in the audience because I'm not yet a full minister. So I'm not sitting up with the ministers and bishops. Okay, so the service ends, and one of the bishops comes up to me and says, Sam, there's an emergency meeting, but you're not supposed to go back there. So you can't go to the emergency meeting. Like, oh, okay. So I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Because we set up all these tables for the public, and they've got pamphlets and who knows what. So I'm asking some people. I said, that are in the audience. I said, anybody see anything? No, nobody saw anything. Right? It just blew my mind. Nobody saw that. So then they ended the meeting. This special meeting, and the same bishop came out to me and said that was Mother God. Okay, she said that was Mother God. So that was the first time I saw something. I didn't feel it, I didn't smell it, but I saw it. That was the first time. Other times, now, a different story is the Peruvian journalist requested I go with him to help a flood victim community and call in a UFO, which we did from Orion. So that is something I observed, I witnessed. And then when they got immediately in front of me, I went, how big is that? When I said that, I just went blank. I don't remember anything after that. Then I came back later, maybe a second, maybe it was an hour, I don't know, out of the dark into a light. So, and a bunch of other things. Okay, now I work with my guardian angel, Daisy. September 21st, 1996. Light came out of my chest. I went to the other side, got a blessing from a being. Over there is referred to as David, and that doesn't make me better or smarter. It just means I have a rapport with my guardian angel, Daisy. So I use that as best I can to help people learn their spiritual lessons with the least amount of pain, baby. And I've been doing that since 96. So that's the preface. So the stuff that I'm now going to talk about, and the title of it is Multidimensional Diplomacy of Gestating Consciousness by Sam Bell. So take a deep breath. Close yourself with the white light of the Holy Spirit. Exhale any anger, greed, frustration visualized out your mouth as so much burnt smoke and ash. Big through the nose, inhale, white light. Exhale out your mouth, any smoke or ash. So, the willingness and coordination to work with higher consciousness beings, historical context, evolutionary implications, and the role of social systems. So the introduction, the convergence of histories and possibilities. Throughout the recorded and unrecorded history of our species, there have been episodic yet potent moments when Homo sapiens reached beyond terrestrial confines, spiritually, cognitively, and physically, to engage with intelligence not bound by earthly form or frequency. Often dismissed as mythology or mysticism, these moments, when viewed through the interdisciplinary lens of neuroscience, speech and language pathology, anthropology, and metaphysics, emerge not as anomalies, but as integral waypoints in humanity's developmental trajectory. In hospice rooms, we observe final clarity. In ancient temples, we find encoded star maps. The boundary between embodied experience and transcendent communion is thinner than we admit. To understand humanity's growing capacity to collaborate with higher consciousness beings, whether extraterrestrial, originating from different planetary systems, or ultra-terrestrial, existing in non-Euclidean, non-local, or higher dimensional strata of consciousness. One must contextualize this potential in both our evolutionary neurobiology and our socio-historical inheritance. The psycho-spiritual legacy of ancient civilizations, from Gobekli Tepe to Caral in Peru, from the Sumerian Anunnaki accounts to Dogon cosmology in Mali, Earth's ancient civilizations, encoded narratives, and architectural designs that suggest not only advanced astronomical knowledge, but also interpersonal exchanges with beings of extraordinary awareness. When analyzed with a rehabilitative clinician's lens, considering aphasia, dyspraxia, and symbol transmission in nonverbal modalities, one might interpret these structures as functional communication scaffolds rather than mere rituals or tombs. Take, for instance, the Inca practice of knotted cords encoding numerical and possibly linguistic information. Though intrinsically non-alphabetic, they represent a system paralleling neural encoding strategies found in the limbic cortical network. Symbolic, nonlinear, yet precise. What if such systems were co-developed under tutelage or mutual coordination with non-terrestrial intelligence? When deconstructed using semiotics and symbol grounding theory, the message becomes clear. Human cognition has never evolved in isolation. From the Rosicrucians to the Egyptian priesthoods to the adepts of the Himalayas, human history features enclaves of deeply preserved contact protocols, rituals, chants, geometric sigils, and meditative postures that, when decoded, appear to facilitate interface with higher planes or entities. For centuries, these methods were obscured, sometimes willfully by ecclesiastical powers and colonial empires, as they feared disruption of their hierarchical control. These systems of preservation were not simply spiritual. They were neurocognitive training regimes. Just as a speech therapist retrains orofacial musculature in apraxia of speech, these esoteric systems retrain human attentional bandwidth to access broader fields of resonance. In modern neuroimaging terms, we could hypothesize the activation of temporal parietal junctions, insular cortex, and default mode networks in a mystical trance. The very neural correlates of interoception, empathy, and non-dual awareness. Following World War II, numerous sightings, recoveries, and reverse engineering attempps. Example, Roswell, 47, Phoenix Lights, and Peru's Nazca anomalies indicate undeniable global pattern of contact. Yet, these encounters have been shrouded by disinformation, ridicule, and carefully orchestrated gatekeeping. Declassified documents now corroborate what mystics and near-death experiences have reported for millennia. Non-human intelligence is here, observing, perhaps even nudging. The suppression, however, is not merely political. It is neuroepistemic. To confront non-local intelligence requires the dissolution of rigid schemata, a process not unlike the grief work encountered in speech pathology when patients lose linguistic identity and rebuild semantic coherence. The term ontological shock describes the defensive disintegration of worldview upon encountering a broader ontological structure, something akin to a person with Wernicke's aphasia suddenly becoming aware of their misalignment with shared linguistic reality. Our societies have not yet developed psychological scaffolding for mass ontological reorientation. To transition from passive witness of the anomalous to active participants in cosmic ecology, three tiers of social evolution are critical, each requiring grounding, service oriented adaptation of current paradigms. One level, embodied consciousness as tuning instrument, mechanism, neuroplasticity, attention regulation, and service orientation, implementation, mindfulness based cognitive therapy, compassionate inquiry, and neuroempathic training. Rationale. Speech and language pathologists often coach patients to remap neural pathways after trauma or degeneration. Similarly, contact readiness requires neural retraining, not only in perceptual thresholds, but also in moral coherence. A person habituated to flight or fight responses, media manipulation, and dopamine hijacks cannot tune into subtle bandwidths of transdimensional presence. One more time, a person habituated to fight or flight responses, media manipulation, and dopamine hijacks cannot tune into subtle bandwidths of transdimensional presence. It is through service to others, not merely meditation or technology, that an individual refines their frequency. This process activates heart coherence, prefrontal integration, and gamma synchrony, physiological conditions associated with peak states and perceived communication with non-physical intelligence. The outcome? Individuals become antennae, biological transceivers capable of two-way resonance with higher intelligence. This does not imply abduction fantasies or messianic delusions, but a sober, integrated augmentation of daily life. Second way, local level. At the local level, conscious community infrastructures. Now, the mechanism is bioregional councils, citizen science networks, and trauma-informed collectives. Implementation, localized educational hubs similar to Waldorf or Sudbury models. Permaculture-informed settlements and community-based health systems integrating spiritual care. The rationale, just as speech therapy and hospice involves both patients and caregivers, any elevation of consciousness on the local level requires communal entrainment. Coordination with higher beings, if to be sustainable, must emerge from communities that practice ethical reciprocity, transparent communication, and conflict transformation. These earth-based nodes can act as consensual landing sites, not merely physical, but psychospiritual zones where interspecies cooperation is normalized. Local groups that learn to resolve differences through nonviolent communication, maintain energetic hygiene, is taught in various healing arts, and engage in acts of ecological restoration, create resonance fields that are more attractive to benevolent higher intelligence. Hello, their bandwidth is not mired in greed, tribalism, or shame cycles, but oriented toward mutual benefit. The outcome, well, local social ecosystems function as phase locked fields, amplifying coherence and allowing conscious collaboration across veils. On a third level, a global level, planetary diplomacy and narrative integration. The mechanism: coordinated myth making, cross disciplinary councils, and planetary healing rituals. Implementation: United Nations style assemblies focused on off planet cultural relations, international disclosure symposia, and collective meditation events synchronized across time zones. Rationale: planetary species must present unified intent before initiating formal multidimensional diplomacy. This does not mean uniformity of culture, but coherence of motive. In end stage neurodegenerative therapy, clinicians often work within interdisciplinary teams that include neurology, psychology, speech therapy, and occupational therapy to provide holistic care. Similarly, Earth must develop interdisciplinary planetary councils where linguists, shamans, astrophysicists, psychologists, and diplomats coalesce around shared objectives of healing, stewardship, and relational evolution. Cultural narratives long has been shaped by fear-based religions and exploitive economies, must be rewritten, removed, to prepare humanity for its inclusion in a broader cosmic ecology. This includes the integration of suppressed histories, Atlantis, Lemuria, interstellar origins, with contemporary scientific paradigms such as quantum entanglement, multiverse theory, and post-material consciousness research. Outcome: humanity repositions itself not as an isolated species, but as a budding initiatory culture with a galactic tapestry, within a galactic tapestry. Service becomes the lingua franca of content. So, at all levels, the evolution of consciousness is predicated on the relinquishment of egoic supremacy, kick it out the door, and embrace of interbeing, a planet that learns to tend to its wounded, whether individuals in hospice beds or ecosystems on the brink of collapse, becomes a planet capable of joining a wider network of conscious civilizations. Speech and language pathology, in its essence, is the facilitation of meaningful connection across internal and external barriers. Aphasia, dysphonia, and neurodegeneration. Similarly, humanity's next leap is one of interspecies speech language evolution. Repeat, similarly, humanity's next leap is one of interspecies speech and language evolution. Moving from babble to resonance. Philosophically, we invoke the Platonic realm of forms, not as an abstraction, but as a living archetypes that higher beings may embody. The good, the true, and the beautiful are not just ideals. They are frequencies through which communion becomes possible. Spirituality, service to others is not martyrdom. Service to others is the attunement of consciousness to a higher field, like a cochlear implant restoring sound perception or a visualizer rendering inaudible music visible. It is the tuning fork by which the universe discerns our readiness. Well, loved one, our willingness to collaborate with higher consciousness beings begin with listening to the silence between the words, to the pain beneath the conflict, to the guidance above the ego. It requires emotional articulation, cognitive flexibility, and ontological humility. It requires us to recognize that Earth is not an orphan planet, but a gestating consciousness, awaiting its invitation to join the choir of awakened worlds. Let the service to others not be a moral obligation, but a vibrational strategy. For in serving, we recalibrate. We recalibrate in healing. We awaken. And in humbling ourselves before the immensity of cosmic intelligence, we begin to remember that we too are star stuff, not merely born of earth, but co-authors in its ascension. You and all your loved ones are always in my prayers. Samuel Joseph Bell, civilian journalist, spiritualmag.org.